Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. It's exactly 43 minutes. That's past the hour of 7 a.m. And at this particular time, we're heading straight to the KARIBU, East Africa. And of course, the international news as we review what's really transpiring within the region and the globe at large. Remember, channel 372 on DSTV and channel 394 on Gold TV and Smart 24 TV official Facebook at Smart 24 TV on Twitter and Smart 24 TV Live. As you will be in position to get us at whatever part of the globe and at whatever part of the region we will be at as we deliver to you the business updates, both local and international, and above all, interregional. And of course, starting with the KARIBU East Africa, we'll look at Kenya as we see paying for Kenya's taxpayers as the debt burden rises to 24.4 billion. That's US dollars. That's quite a lot of money regarding this prospect. But let's review this report and really see what is transpiring in the nation of Kenya. Kenya's dollar denominated debt hit 63.9%. That's of the country's external debt. That's in October, exposing the taxpayers to higher financing costs due to the sharp depreciation of the shilling against the US currency. This translates to that's 3.2 trillion Kenyan shillings. That is equivalent to 24.4 billion US dollars. That's for Kenya's growing external debt. That it rose to Kenyan shillings 4.35 trillion. And of course, that's in October, with that proportion growing by 2.3%. That's 2.3 percentage points, rather. That's from 2021, and an increase of 3.4 percentage points compared that's to 2020. As you can see, what is really transferring into the economy of Kenya in that matter. As we see still here that Kenya's national treasury data shows the proportion of external debt denominated that's in the euro stood at 18.8%. That's in the same month, and 4.1% that's in yen. That's 5.3% in yuan, and of course, and 2.3% in pounds sterling. While currencies accounted for 0.2%. That's of the total external debt. So we can have a very interesting comparison as we look at this growing debt in. Looking at the different currencies, how it's measured. You see the euros, the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan. So you get to understand it's all really not working out very good for Kenya right there in this aspect. And of course, some quite tough measures to be done to ensure that the situation is put back into proper condition before the matters get out of control, get out of hand. And we see that this comes at a time the Kenyan shilling has continued to weaken. That's against the greenback. And of course, when I talk about the greenback, I mean the dollar, due to the raises of lending rates. That's by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Looking at the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank, it's actually been increasing the rate. The value, by quite a number of basis points as one of the ways to control the recession. But, it seems like when these central banks from other countries, for example, the Bank of England and the Central Bank of Europe, when they do really come up with these, like raising the interest rates of the currencies, suddenly, little do they see that it really affects the currencies of countries in the growing economies. That is very, we are at a very high competition. Lately, last time we saw the Bank of Australia, that's the RZDA, yes, and the Reserve Bank, of course, raising the interest rate of the dollar regarding that. And we see that despite the fact that there is an effect on the currency, it also retaliates back to the currency of a local country. For example, Kenya, looking at the different, we have been looking at the way the Kenyan shilling is declining against other foreign currencies, and it's quite very worrying in that aspect. Now, still, we see that raises of the lending rates by the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States are causing an outflow of dollars from the global market into the United States. and which heavily affected. That's the developing countries. Exactly, that's what I've just talked about regarding that matter. That little do they know that as they try to raise the interest rates, by the way, they are worries of a global recession. Probably the 2008 meltdown, which started by the closure that's of the JP Morgans and the Goldman Sachs Bank. You remember that saga, and of course, quite those rates. It's like a nightmare when we talk about that. Joe Biden, the president of the United States of America, when he's doing quite so many interviews with the different media journalists, that's always the question that comes up. Will we have a recession this time around? But of course, quite lots of work is being done by the different central banks to try to control this recession, though we are in a pre-recession regarding that. So that's this big to the developing countries. Think about that. Okay, the dollar was trading at a mean of Kenyan shillings, that's 122.94. That's Thursday, compared to a mean that's of 113. That's 0.17 at the start of the year, a rise of 8.6%, of course, increasing Kenya's external debt. So you get to see what's really transpiring right there. Now, away from Kenya, we head to Tanzania. And of course, we see that the food price goes up. That's in Tanzania. The government cited unfavorable weather and increased exports to neighboring nations as two major causes contributing to the skyrocketing food costs. Still looking at the deputy minister, that's for investment, industry and trade, Mr. Chigahi, told reporters that government continues to monitor the situation before taking measures that will ensure a reasonable supply of food and reduce the inflationary pressure. According to Mr. Chigahi, the trend in price growth indicates that some of the products have increased as a result of the fall in production that's during the agricultural season, that is 2021-2022. He mentioned that some of the items whose prices have increased include maize flour, rice, beans, potatoes, wheat flour, sugar and cooking oil, adding that of course, adding that producers have been affected by a shortage of rains during the agriculture season. And of course, the other items whose prices increased are sugar, that's from 2,600 Tanzanian shillings per kilo to 3,000 Tanzanian shillings per kilo, while cooking oil sold at 7,750 shillings per liter, up from 4,500 Tanzanian shillings. Mr. Chigahi said that the cost of building supplies, including iron sheet cement and steel, has not changed. And of course, the minister declared that in order to safeguard the interests of the farmers, traders and consumers alike, the government will assess the costs of significant produce. So you can see what is really transparent right there. Of course, the food scarcity in Tanzania, and of course, making sure that the government does something about that. Okay, now away from East Africa, let's get straight to the international news and see what's really making headlines that's across the globe. All right, now looking in here, of course, we start with Elon Musk, of course, selling 3.6 billion of shares in electric car maker Tesla. Elon Musk is again back into the headlines. When we look here, we see that the shares were sold on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, of course, the previous week, according to the filing with the U.S. financial regulator. It brings the total of Tesla stocks sold by Mr. Musk over the past year to almost $40 billion. Earlier this week, Mr. Musk lost his position as the world's richest person. The reason for the latest share sales has not been disclosed yet. Of course, we shall be finding out why. Why did that happen? He remains Tesla's biggest shareholder with 13.4% stake, according to financial market data provider. That's Refinitiv. And of course, last month, Mr. Musk revealed that he had sold over 19.5 million shares of Tesla, worth $3.95 billion, just days after completing a $44 billion takeover of social media platform Twitter. Musk has not really, ever since he took over Twitter, one of these, something which has really something historical in his career. We're looking at so many people leaving the Twitter, including some of the most famous celebrities, and this could actually be turning back to him as a person regarding that, So we are looking at this, like we know that he lost his number one position of being the richest person, because currently Elon Musk is at 173. His net worth is 173 billion. $1 billion coming number two. Of course, I'll be letting you know who's number one as we go on there. Tesla is one of the worst performing stocks. That's among major car makers and technology companies this year. See that? As investors worry that Mr. Musk's buyout of Twitter is diverting his attention. I just mentioned that. Further, as we see that at the end of last year, the company was worth more than $1 trillion US, but its value has slumped in the recent months. You see, Mr. Musk completed the takeover of Twitter in October, and since then, he has focused on significant amount of his time on the business. It's been quite a transforming moment in his career, Elon Musk, away from there. And of course, the Twitter deal was only completed months after months of legal wrangling, and some have cited the distraction of the takeover as another factor behind Tesla's price share fall. Okay, now away from that, we go to ECB, that's the European Central Bank, to slow rate hikes and lay out plans to drain cash. The European Central Bank was said to raise interest rates for the fourth time. That's in a row. That was on Thursday, although by less than at its last two meetings, and lay out plans to drain cash from the financial system as it fights runaway inflation. The European Central Bank has been raising rates at unprecedented pace. That's in rein in prices that have soared since economies reopened after the COVID-19 pandemic, driven by supply bottlenecks and then the surging energy costs following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So looking at that, we see that the central bank of the 19th century Eurozone raised the interest it pays. That's on bank deposits from negative 0.5% to 1.5% in just 3 months, reversing a decade of ultra easy policy after being wrong-footed by the sudden price rise. Okay, for the interest of time, of course, I wind up the international report as we look at China's retail factory output slump as COVID curbs hit the growth. Of course, we see that China's economy lost more steam in November as factory output slowed and retail sales extended declines, and both are missing forecasts and cloaking their worst readings in the 6 months, harbored by surging COVID-19 cases and the widespread of the virus curbs. It's exactly 56 minutes past the hour of 7 a.m. and this particular time, let's get into a short commercial break. We'll return with more business updates. Stick around. Good morning.